The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood Redefined. From Los Angeles, California, streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party, featuring weekly discussions on political news and current affairs. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood Redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, the Black Tea Party.
Yes. What's up, man?
How's it going?
It's good. Good to be in here, man.
I love this music. It's my favorite music.
It's very calm. I feel like I should have a cognac
Right?
and a cigar in my hand. Like, what's up, everybody? It's Black Hollywood Live, Black Tea Party. I'm Anthony Martin. My Instagram handle is Blackfist Activist. Follow me on all social media. Check me out. I talk about this stuff all the time, as well as some other things. But yeah, it's great to be back. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a long week, but I'm happy to end it here. I'm
week.
Julian Dujaric. You can catch me across the board on all social media at Julian Dujaric, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that.
All right, man. We got a very interesting show for you today. As you know, the Democratic debate was yesterday.
Yeah.
We had the Iowa Caucus. We got some other things that we want to implement into the whole political story. But let's start off with the Democratic debate since it's the most recent. Julian, just first off, what was your take of it? I mean,
They didn't let Martin O'Malley speak anymore again. They still didn't let him speak. It was like he wasn't there.
it was crazy. What happened to him?
I don't know. What happened? O'Malley, where are you? No, it got contentious. Like
Yeah.
it got a little heated at moments.
It definitely was it was going up. I saw from the start, it was kind of like, okay, back and forth. They were like, oh, she's good, or he's good. And it was like, well, you ain't doing that.
Right,
It kind
right.
of got crazy, yeah.
So it was interesting to see that because, yeah, this whole time, well, for the majority of the campaign thus far, they've been kind of as cordial as you can be when you're trying to,
exactly.
go for the same job.
Now it's
but
them too.
The clause came out, so it was good to see that because I think that's healthy debate.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest takeaways from that was it was all about who's the most progressive.
Yeah.
Like that was the thing. It was like, I'm progressive. I think Clinton had a quote that she's, I'm progressive because I make progress. I'm here to get things done. And, she's just trying to battle with that as far as like being a moderate and just fighting, I guess fighting the claims that Bernie's making on her. And then I guess everything just kind of trickled off from there is like, how progressive are you in this avenue and that avenue? So
Yeah, it was a progressive off. Hey, yeah, and we'll talk about why this is funny in a second because I just discovered this today. But Bernie was really hitting her hard on this big banking affiliation that she has.
She was.
I mean, she does. I mean, the top donors to her campaign are mostly banks. They contribute a lot of money.
Right.
So that was something that he was definitely driving home. And she, of course, was touting her experience and his inexperience in foreign policy. I think there was I'm gonna misquote this heavily, I'll just paraphrase. There was a point where Clinton said to Bernie Sanders, you can't just barge into a room and expect people to be okay with your negotiating tactic. Like that is a negotiating tactic. That's not how it works. So I thought that was like a little twist of the knife a little bit, but it was a really interesting back and forth.
yeah.
A little more substantive than we've seen.
I definitely agree. I mean, I don't know. I've watched so many debates, and I think I've watched so many more political stuff in the past couple of years than I followed previously. But I mean, it's I don't know, man.
Speak your mind, brother.
It's very comical. I watch this stuff and I think like, both of these people are really good, like as far as speakers and gathering people for their cause, I guess, but nobody seems to have a real plan. Nobody is like out here, and I talked to Don one time when I was in the show, and I was talking about Trump at the time, and I was like, Trump comes out and he says he's going to do this and do that, but there's no real plan. And now that I'm watching everybody else, they kind of do the same thing. They just say it a little bit better, so people are following them. It just throws me off. But I understand, like, they want the buildup. They want you to believe in them first, and then they act it out. But I'm one of those people that I like everything thrown out right in front of me, so I know what's going on. And I just don't see that from both of them. I see a lot of, who's better at this and who's better at that. But why? I mean, they talk about history, I guess, and like their past accomplishments. But I mean, to me, I see like, okay, you have experience, but the past is past. What are you doing now? Like, where is it going? So that's how I look at these debates.
Well, essentially, this is a job interview, right?
Yeah,
the presidential race is a really, really long job interview, and so where the boss is everybody, all the citizens in the U.S. And I agree with you. I think having all of it kind of spelled out for folks right at the top is I would like to see that. I think it takes some time for the masses to kind of acclimate to people, because we've already had a system in place, a political system in place that does take this long.
Right.
That's the most PC way I can say that.
There's no PC on the show. We don't care.
Okay, well, it takes a while for people to kind of acclimate to ideas and research ideas, and people are busy. They need to wrap their mind around things. So I think that's why I do this every day. Like, I follow this. You and I follow this stuff a little more closely. So for us, expediency is probably more important.
I get it. So on for the debate yesterday, what do you think are the wins and losses for both candidates? Like, what was like the major win and the talking points that they came across? Let's start with Bernie. Like, what's his big win? What's his big loss?
Well, I think his big win in terms of narrative is what he's continued to say, is that Hillary Clinton is an establishment candidate, and she, does not really have progressive values. And I know that he was, they were both kind of going back and forth on that a lot. But that was sort of he didn't steer off too much from that messaging. What I thought was with regards to Hillary Clinton, what I thought helped her was pointing out that some of the inconsistencies in his voting record, specifically with funding the banks that contributed to the economic collapse of not too long ago, and some other things. But I think judgment and experience is what she was trying to perpetuate, those qualities that she has, and Bernie was trying to perpetuate. Or I don't want to say perpetuate, but he was rallying up the sentiment of people who don't really they're not enamored with government.
Yeah.
So I think they both had strengths in those specific areas.
Yeah. I think.
But I think I know where you're going. I think it's all kind of like a.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. One thing I liked about Bernie, I'm still like on the fence for both of you. I'm one of those people that's undecided, I guess. But I think one of the things I like about Bernie, I don't necessarily look at the policies, because I think at the end of the day, they're gonna do what they have to get done to make it work. So I like Bernie because he does have that narrative where he speaks a lot more to the people.
Yeah.
And he pushes. I've gained this much money because the people gave me this, and it wasn't big business or Wall Street. They used talked a lot about Wall Street, and I like the fact that he's going that route. It just kind of makes you feel a little bit more comfortable being the average citizen of the United States, and knowing that he's looking out for you, on the outside looking in, it seems as if he is not being controlled by anything else. So, and if that's the the talk that he's using, it's working. It's working for me at least. I like that about him, and he did a lot of that yesterday, and I like his conversation.
Yeah.
I like how he talks.
And a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of people like the fact that he talks about the prison industrial complex and how it's very obvious based on the data that it disproportionately affects people like you and me, people of color. So that's not really any other candidate is talking about that stuff, which is a real problem.
A very real problem. One of the things that I am completely just disgusted with this whole like campaign about is that there is not enough discussion about those disparities. Not enough candidates are talking about, you know, what's going wrong in the prison system. You know, what's the problem with the judicial system and how things work, the hatred in the United States right now and how it's being perpetuated through other candidates, in my opinion. And nobody's really talking about that. And when someone brings that up, I'm the first person to be like, turn my head, because I'm listening now. You got my attention. And I think at least a lot of my colleagues and a lot of people that I know are looking for that, because that touches a personal aspect of everything, and you want to hear things about that. And yeah, we can talk about the finances of the United States and foreign policy, but that means a lot, you know, overall. But in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about the average person. Like me, I want to hear about the stuff that's going on right in front of me.
You're not average, Ant.
Thank you. No, but I do. I want to hear things that are going on right in front of me. I know that there's a bigger picture, and I want that stuff to get done too. I know you're going to do it. You're going to be the president. You're going to have a million advisors advising you on how to work all that. But the things that are touching home, like in small communities, and that's really a problem, like poverty and education and things that I see every day with my family and, you know, my friends and what we're struggling with. Those are things I like to hear about, your tactics and your policies and how you're going to handle those, because that is important to, you know, my livelihood and my family and my friends. So when they talk about that, I really like that. And I won't say that Bernie's the only person that does that. I have heard the funny thing about Hillary. I'll cut my statement short in a second. But the one thing funny about Hillary is that she will make the remark about those things and she'll stop. She'll be like, she'll say it to say it almost. I kind of noticed it in the debate yesterday. I think one of her opening statements was talking about like disparities with black and Latino incarceration or something. But she just said it, and she doesn't really go in depth with her, I guess, plans on how she's going to do things. She's you know, she makes it seem like, yes, this is something we need to work on, and then stop. So it's kind of like, okay, it's on your mind, that's good, but I want to hear more. I want to hear that talk. I want to hear that conversation, and that's just, I guess, in my personal opinion, those are one of the things I would like to hear more about. So that's a criticism that a lot of people have when it comes to Hillary Clinton, specifically with those issues. She talks about the issues, she identifies them, right? Exactly. But she doesn't necessarily. She'll suggest things that are in very general terms, but she doesn't really have any. She doesn't get specific enough for people. Yeah. I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. My thing with Bernie, and I think a lot of people. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I just speak for myself. I think everyone agrees with me. My thing with Bernie is, I like that he's talking about these issues. I really do, because they are important issues. I really don't understand. I still don't know how he's going to fix them. Right. I don't. So FYI, Bernie Sanders, if you're on the internet and you're watching us, please come on the show. We have questions. Lots of questions. So what's one of them? Like, what's one of the things you hear about, but how's he fixing it?
So the prison industrial complex, right? It's a private model, right? It's a private thing. So the incentive is for there to be higher crime so that the prisons are filled, right?
Making money.
Right, so they can make money. What do you plan on doing in terms of law? Like, what do you plan on doing to break that up and make it so that there is no incentive to lock up people for victimless crimes? Because he says that's his intention. But what exactly do you plan on doing? Is this a bill? Is that an executive action? What? Right. And my frustration is that I want him to go even further. He definitely goes further than Hillary Clinton in terms of I guess specifics. But he doesn't really puts forth a solution. And so that's a frustration in terms of how he plans on paying for education for all and healthcare for all. The things that I've read, it's not economically feasible. It doesn't make sense. So that's the numbers don't make sense.
That's interesting. So yesterday he was talking about education. He doesn't want just K through 12 to be free. He wants all public universities, institutions to have free education.
Yeah.
So he made that point, and it does sound good. I would love that. And he talked about reducing debt for people that have been to those institutions and are $60,000+ in debt.
Mm-hmm.
And then was it on that same topic that Hillary came out and said something about it being just not feasible? It just doesn't work.
She says she wants to make it affordable for everyone, but not free.
Right. So, I mean, and you might know better. So I know in other countries, just like he said in the debate yesterday, that they do have free education in universities, institutions. Like, that's one of the things that, it's a platform of other countries, is they have that free education. Why is it so hard? And why is it so hard to have it free here? Why does Clinton say that I want to make it affordable but not free? Why can't we make it free?
Well, when you compare the United States to some of the countries that Bernie Sanders is comparing us to, I don't understand. Like, there are blanket statements that are made that just don't apply to us necessarily. I mean, the GDP is different, the culture is different. People, it's just, there are a lot of variables that come into play. So to say, yes, because it works here, it will work here as well. Because it works there, it'll work here, for me, isn't logically consistent. I don't know. And he said this. He says he wants to raise taxes on everybody.
Okay.
But the economic experts that I read that have criticized his plan say that there just isn't enough money from taxation, from the types of taxes that he wants to implement. You still fall short.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people would be willing to pay higher taxes if they know that the government is going to allocate those funds in the appropriate way, or if that money is enough. But he, for me, doesn't seem to have a full grasp on what it would take to do that. I think, and I hate to say, I'm not going to say I hate to say anything. I think there are some interesting ideas coming from the conservative side in terms of, scaling for certain conservatives that were running. I guess he's not running anymore. Rand Paul's not running anymore. He's scaling back the use of military so we can save money there, which I think we spend more than, I don't know, however many.
Probably more than everything.
Yeah, we spend more in our military than a bunch of other countries combined.
That's a fact. More than everything.
More than everything else. So I think if you're a true conservative, and I'm kind of conflating the two because I know you asked me about Bernie Sanders, so I'll get back to him. But I think on the conservative side, if you're a true conservative, war is expensive. So wouldn't you want to conserve that money and allocate it to domestic issues?
Right.
And on the Democratic side, I would think they are, the bleeding heart liberals. They want peace, but Bernie Sanders talks about a lot of kind of pro-war. There's some, and Hillary Clinton certainly does too.
Yeah.
So I had this conversation with our guest a couple weeks ago, Amir, and Stacey asked, what is the difference? To me, there's no real difference. This is what Stacey said, and I agree with her.
Difference
between the two parties in terms of war and in terms of. My roommate and I had this discussion, and we were saying, the kind of stereotype on the right is that they want to police your personal life, and then the stereotype on the left is they want to police. Like it's a lose-lose situation.
Right.
Police your civil liberties.
Okay.
Which I think it's the same thing. Like you police your body, police your civil liberty. Like you have the right to your body, right?
Right.
I don't know. I'm watching this a little more closely, and I just don't see a lot of different ideas from either party. I think the right is very much pro-war. Let's bomb Iran. Let's bomb these countries. Let's completely shell the Middle East, which I mean obviously it leads to more terrorism.
Right.
And then the right is kind of saying something, and the left, is kind of saying the same thing. So I don't really see a difference.
Yeah, I guess the only difference that I think about when I think is like when we're talking about like the right and the left. The Republicans are, they're like gung-ho about it. Like, no, we're getting in there. We're going to take them out. It's going to be over. Like, they want to I feel like using slang, like Obama says, they want to like boss like the rest of the world. Like they want to boss them. Like they're gonna tell them like, look, this is what we're doing. You either get in line or you're getting bombed. I feel like the left is more like, oh, we want to have these conversations with them. We want to try to work with them, but at the same time, if they don't do it, then we're gonna have to like come into their area. And I just feel like they're the same thing. They're just going a different avenue about it, and how they're wording it sounds different depending on which party you're involved in. But yeah, I do. I think one thing with wars, you can't really, like they were talking about it yesterday. I think one thing with wars, you can't really shy away from it. You can't really say that you don't. No, I don't think you can. I mean, it's inevitable, and our country continues to have wars with other countries, and we always are going to have disputes and other things with other countries around the world. And I don't think a president can necessarily shy away from that fact that if it happens, we're going to have to take the lead. They just don't want to be. I guess with the Democrats, they don't necessarily want to be the front runner of all the wars that are going on now, because they're not necessarily their war. So they're trying to figure out a way.
What do you mean not their war? What do you mean?
Well, like how they were talking about like Syria and ISIS and having the issues with them, and that's their fight, not ours. They just want to assist.
Oh, got it.
They want to assist with it, but they don't necessarily want to be involved. But they don't want to. They want to assist with it, but they don't want to be a part of it, like part of the war. So they don't
want to get too deeply involved.
Exactly.
They don't want
so
ground
and I think
troops,
that's what Democrats are trying to push is like, yeah, we're going to make this happen for the greater good. We just don't want to be, the big guy on campus with it. So
yeah, but at the same time, the U.S. supports some pretty questionable governments, right? In terms of civil liberty. So is it hypocritical of them to say that and at the same time support a governmental system that supports some pretty shady stuff?
Yeah, I think it is hypocritical, but I just don't think that we can shy away from people. As much as people want to say, I'm one of them. As much as people want to talk about that they don't want war, we want peace. We also want what we have. And we want to keep the United States the way it is. And how the government portrays it is that if we don't do certain things around the world, we won't have that. So because we have that subconscious thought in our head, we want to hear about what you're going to do if it comes to terms to make that happen.
So you think the government is propagandizing?
I think,
or propagating?
Yeah,
What's the word?
Yeah, however you put it.
Using propaganda.
I do. I think in various ways. And because of that, subconsciously, I don't know. Let me ask you, because how I feel is, and just tell me how you think. I feel about war is that, no, I don't want war. I want everything to be peaceful.
Right.
But I also like the United States that I live in a sense of the word that, we're, how financially stable in my eyes we are, and like on the bottom looking up. And how we work and how everything does, and I subconsciously I do think that we are like this because we are trying to, we're, I guess, the leaders in like military, and nobody's going to do anything crazy drastic with us because they know if they try to start a war like on our soil, it's going to be bad. Yeah. So, I'm thinking, well, if it has to come to that, I need them to handle this. And so that's what, subconsciously I think that. So I want to hear about war, and I want to hear about our military and what you're going to do. I want peace. I want the troops off the ground, but at the same time, I also want my lifestyle.
But you can have your lifestyle. We can all have that lifestyle and not perpetuate violence, right?
Right.
So I kind of see it. I'm with you, but I have a slightly different take. I also want peace. I don't think war is conducive to anything productive at all. Just until people realize that it doesn't, and then they stop the war for a little bit, and hopefully it's longer than a little bit. But for me, I think war should only be in self-defense. I think the military force or force of any kind should only be in self-defense, and to I don't think you have to perpetuate it in order for you to continue living the life. Because geographically, I mean, the United States is, I mean, look at where we are in the world. Okay. So it would take a great effort to have another country come over here and invade us or whatever. So I think we're good on that front. But I think it should only be in self-defense. And I don't really see that being the case. Just as I'm following the issues now and even reading into history, the history of wars on both the American side and, you know, in other countries, it doesn't seem as though that's the case. So, yes, I also want peace, but to me, you know, peace isn't attained by force, I don't think.
So do you think like if we just kind of... so if there's no ISIS... If there's no, I mean, countries that are coming at us right at this moment, let's just say everything cleared up today.
But ISIS is going after everybody.
Yeah, but so if they weren't coming at us, like if we didn't have any issues with any of those people and we just were like, yep, we're going to wait till they come to us, have that self-defense mentality. Would you feel more comfortable in our United States, like just just waiting? Because self-defense, I mean, I might be a very aggressive person, but self-defense is almost, I don't think of it like, I couldn't fathom having a self-defense mentality because I would be nervous that I would get blindsided. Yeah. So that's kind of how I do it, and you know, that's why.
But isn't that what self-defense is? To defend yourself from harm?
But it's reactive though, in a sense, I think sometimes. So like
self-defense is reactive.
Like because you're waiting for someone to come at you before you act, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of
as opposed to going before they go to you.
Yeah, or not even that. I'm not. See, I know I'm touching it. I'm hitting points that But this is how I think.
No, we gotta talk about.
This is how I think. So this is. I mean, I don't necessarily agree that we should just like, you know, shoot everybody, kill everybody before they even do anything. But I like to be.
But some argue assertive. That's what we do.
No, that is what we do. I'm not saying that we.
Some
not
people
doing
argue that.
I don't like that aspect. But if they could switch it, and if they could somewhat finagle it to where we're still very powerful and we ooze that, you know, power, so people are somewhat, I guess, respective of us instead of I guess coming at them and shooting everybody first, asking questions later. It's
respect
weird.
Or fear, because right now, as I see it, I think we're being feared, and that is not peaceful at all. Like, peace is the absence of fear, right?
No, I agree. I'm my thought process is I agree with you. I just think, I guess back to the original point is that, you know, I don't want war, but I understand that war is needed at some points in times. And then when our candidates talk about it, I want them to be truthful about it. I mean, I honestly, you know, when they're saying, you know, we're going to get all troops off the ground, you know, we're going to do this, it's not plausible because we're not at that point, and we have to get there first. And I think that's one of the things, I guess, Hillary and Bernie Sanders made yesterday, is that, you know, it's not going to all happen at once. We're trying it. It's a work in progress. But I don't know. That's just my take on as far as like.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little idealistic, but I don't want war, and I'm like, anti-war across the board. Right. Like, I think it's economically feasible for us to not be paying for war. I think it's morally feasible for us to not be paying, you know, not be perpetuating wars, or, you know, even involved in wars, because that all you do is destroy when you're at war. And so
nobody ever comes out on top, is what you're kind of saying. It's just an endless battle.
Yeah. Until one person or one side decides, okay, I've had enough, or both of them decide we've had enough, that we have to like clean up this mess now. I don't think war is conducive to anything progressive. Okay. I'm bringing it right back.
Being progressive. So, okay, let's switch topics a little bit, because I'll come back to that when we get. But so one thing I'll be honest, I'm not completely, I don't understand as well. I try to follow it, I try to read up on it. It's just like, the financial debt of the United States and like their conversation about how they're going to reduce debt here and add tax here and make everything work. I'm sure you probably know better on that than I just.
What's your question?
When they like, for example, when they talk about healthcare and Bernie says he wants free healthcare. We're back to, everything free. And Hillary Clinton is saying that's impossible. I've talked to different economists, and that's $1 trillion+ that it's going to take to make that happen. How are you going to do that? And I'm trying to figure out, like, I guess, is it because we're too far in the hole and that's why it's $1 trillion? Because isn't there other countries that have that, same ideology with that? And why is it so difficult to get out of debt with us without making debt somewhere else, as opposed to other countries that do similar things and they seem that they're doing fine? I mean,
so why is it like that? I mean, if I knew the answer to that, I guess I'd be running for president because I'd know how to fix it. There are arguments on both sides, right? You need to take the money from somewhere in order to pay for certain things, so you tax more, right? And then on the flip side, there's another argument that innovation and the free market should dictate what goods and services are of what priority, right? I really honestly don't know, and that's just the honest answer. I'm not an economic person. I'm not a strategist in that regard, but I look at some countries and I see how their nationalized healthcare system is and it's not really good. I don't know. Like I hear Bernie talk about socialism and being democratic socialism,
right.
and I don't really know the difference. Isn't it still socialism?
Pretty much,
right?
I mean, yeah.
And hasn't the socialist ideology contributed to some of the worst human rights atrocities on the planet? Why would we even entertain that?
I don't know.
And that's just something that occurred to me now. Like, I don't why are we entertaining that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know anything. But we're on the Black Tea Party acting like we did.
No, but that's seriously, those are things I struggle with, just being, I guess, a person on the outside looking in. It's like some of that stuff I don't necessarily understand how they talk about it. It's just basically, and that's kind of how I judge debates and their speeches, because they talk well on things. Like, they're good at trying to make it seem like what they're doing is good, and those are I have to admit, those are things that if it sounds good, I'm following it. Like, okay, you said it. I get so confused on that when they're not talking about, again, when I touch back to when they're not talking about things that are directly affecting me and my family and my friends, and it's kind of abstract thought to me. It's very hard to decide who's right or wrong about that. And I think some of the things when they're talking about, doing paying debts and just money, basically finances, when they have those conversations, like on the debate yesterday, it's really like, well, I don't know. My friends ask me because they see me on the show. They're like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "I don't know."
That stuff does. I mean, it does affect us, because if there's no money, there are no jobs, right? No jobs mean no money,
right?
So it does affect us, and that's something that a lot of people don't really follow. And I'll admittedly, like, I haven't really followed the last election. Not the first time Obama ran for office, but the second time I really started to follow politics a little closely.
Yeah.
I'm following it even closer now, just because. But I don't think a lot of people follow that aspect of it, and a lot of people don't realize that affects everything.
And I think what's kind of scary is I think that's like the major topic, to be honest. I think that is one of the major things that should decide our next president, and a lot of people don't understand it.
Yeah.
So
because they don't really talk. It's not in the mainstream. It's not in the conversation, the mainstream conversation. They mentioned something about the TPP last night, and I had to Google what that was, and it's one of the largest trade agreements in trade history, and I haven't seen much in-depth coverage about that. So I think there's also an element of, I don't want to say secrecy because then I sound like a weird conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's like a giant conspiracy. I don't know anything, and that's why I'm on here. But I think it's also, you know, people just don't know because they don't have the information available to them with the platforms that they choose to engage with. You know?
Exactly. It's very true. Like,
and that goes, I think that rings true for a lot of Americans, for a lot of people in the country. We're in LA, and, you know, people in New York and Miami and some of the big cities, you know, maybe a little more politically astute, politically savvy. But, you know, people in the middle of the country or throughout the rest of the country, you know, they're busy and they have lives, and they, you know, they're not really following politics that closely. And so if you're right, if it sounds right to them, they hear these articulate explanations about these plans that seem very complex and have everything, but they're not really saying anything. So I think that is what people kind of gloss over and say, oh, it sounds right. So she has a plan. Like, she has a plan. He has a plan. You know, we should vote for him. We should vote for her.
All right. So yesterday's debate, I mean, who do you think was, I guess, who do you think came out on top yesterday? Because I'm gonna jump into another portion of that. Who do you think came out on top as far as the debate goes?
I think at the beginning, I think it was Bernie's debate, but with the responses, the retorts on Hillary's side, I think she responded better.
Yeah.
I wasn't particularly impressed with her answers, but the way in which she responded, I think, would register with a lot of folks as being strong and being a strong response.
Yeah, I think that as well. I think Hillary is very good at. She's good at what she does, and a lot of the
they're great politicians.
Yeah, a lot of the debates that I watch her in, or, you know, speeches that she does, she's able to bounce back real quick. She snaps back. She knows what she's going to say. She has it. She tells everybody what it is. So, I mean, I think that's kind of where it is. The reason I brought that up is because a lot of people I talked to think that Hillary won that debate yesterday. And it's kind of funny because I felt she was on the defense from the Iowa Caucus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously the Iowa Caucus came in. It was very tight, right? She won.
Which... coin flip though, like a coin flip.
I mean, I like people saying she won, right? So I mean,
but a coin flip though.
So
like, it was decided by coin flip,
for real.
Like a lot, yeah. Like a lot of these counts were just like, they were too close, right? So they were decided by coin flip. Democracy in action.
That's how it works, man.
That's kind of crazy to me that you can vote. You can text in your vote to 66512 if you want to vote for, you know, Kelly Clarkson on American Idol. You know, but you can't do that or something similar, some electronic form, for the president of the United States.
That is kind of crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
It's nuts. I mean, it just kind of shows you how the voting works around here. How it can be construed. I mean, isn't like Bernie looking into the whole Iowa thing now? Is he?
Yeah, he wants a recount.
Right.
But the caucus doesn't really.
But I think Bernie won the thing. Like, I've heard a lot of analysts on shows and stuff talk about, you know, he was the underdog. So the fact that he came into a tie almost, it's kind of like he won. Yeah. And I feel because of that, Hillary was kind of on the, like, she was trying to come harder at him for the debate. So, I mean, that's my take on that. What do you think?
Yeah, there were definitely moments where Hillary Clinton, you know, again, I'm going to misquote this. I'm going to start writing down these quotes because, like, if they stand out to me, I'll write them down. Now that I have a show, right? She basically mentioned, she was like, you know, I think it's time that your campaign stop this artful smear against my campaign.
Right. Yeah, I remember
that's been happening in recent weeks, and we talk about the issues. And so that kind of started the contentiousness of that portion of the debate. But she was not holding back at all. And I think she needed to, that was something that she needed. She needed to be seen as strong, and I think she did that. However, Bernie also, I mean, that the fact that he kept resorting back to her ties to Wall Street, and even when she said, you know, Wall Street is just one street, there are many factors that come into play when, considering how to regulate and how to govern. But he's like, no, Wall Street is not just one street. Wall Street has a lot of power.
Yeah.
And so he had some interesting responses. I still think Hillary maybe had a little bit of an edge on him just because, and this is just me in terms of the response from the public watching. I think people would probably respond a little better to that because she was on the defense. I think people are ready to see how she will respond. Yeah. And she had she had pretty strong responses in all of her defensiveness.
I also think the thing, what I liked about Hillary yesterday is defense or not, is she kept trying to broaden the conversation a little bit. While Bernie found that wound and he kept digging into it. It's Wall Street, you have these backers, super PAC, you're getting money, you're getting these special interests to kind of help. So he kept hitting that. She, on the defense, trying to beat that, would try to spread the conversation out a little bit. And that created a conversation about other things that, I thought were needed. So that was interesting. That was helpful. I think
it was helpful for her. It was an interesting tactic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
She would take it, absorb it, but then spread it amongst a bunch of other topics.
Exactly.
But I think it's I think that's something that a lot of Americans feel like it's very hard for the American public to believe that Clinton makes all of this money off of these speeches and isn't expected to give something back in return.
I find that kind of hard to believe myself. So.
I think a lot of Americans believe that. Yeah. So that's what Bernie Sanders is tapping into when he attacks her in that regard.
All right. Well, last thoughts. What do you think about the debate? What are you looking for things to come on Tuesdays?
I'm thinking I would like to see a debate on. We mentioned this when the first time I guest hosted. I'd like to see something online on a platform where it's a little less of a gatekeeper kind of platform, because CNN did this town hall thing, and I got the sense that in certain instances better questions could have been asked, and I feel like it was a part of, I don't know, I don't want to speculate because I don't know what the production is like over at CNN. I've never even been in the building, so but I think I'd like to see them be online a little more and engage on the platforms that we are, the youth that they're trying to drum up support from is on. And so it'd be great to kind of see if they did what Rand Paul did, do a Periscope debate, or I don't know. I think something online, something where
that would be awesome. I think that would also help. Kind of talking about myself and not understanding certain
where there are
views.
No commercials.
Yeah,
and you can just have a long form conversation like this.
Exactly.
And you can challenge them, and you can
I don't know how that would go over with the candidates, though. Because
I don't think they would.
They wouldn't be. I don't think they could get fully prepared for that, and that's kind of what frightens them on things.
Yeah.
Like that, so.
But what does that say about? No, seriously, what does that say about the candidates on the left and the right? What does that say about them? That they're not prepared for a long form interview where they don't vet the questions. This is a job interview.
I
you
agree.
prep for a job interview, and when the head of HR interviews you, she doesn't give you a cheat sheet, or he doesn't give you a cheat sheet. You have to be prepared.
Let's see how that goes.
I would love to see that.
I would too. If they happen, you get all the credit.
I think me saying that now, it's gonna happen. No, actually, I think me saying that now, and if I reach out to some of these candidates, be like, nope, we are not coming on the Black Tea Party.
Right.
But I would like to have that happen.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. Let's see what happens in the year to come.
Oh boy. It's a long time until November.
Oh man, it's just so much stuff going on. I guess, I don't know, man. We'll see. It's just I look forward to these all the time, just because I don't know, it's very interesting, but I haven't really, I guess since the start of this show, and that's when we started talking about this race, I still haven't got my answers on a lot of the things that I've been wondering about as far as the presidential candidates and where they're going. And
what's at the top of your mind? What do you really want to know about the candidates' policies?
I guess what I really want to know
any one of the candidates.
I think my overall question is how are you going to change? How are you going to change the society's mindset on things that are in smaller proportion, I guess, to the big idea? As far as I think like the judicial system and education, but like on a smaller scale, because we can funnel money into places and take money out of places, and that will change stuff. But still, I mean, I've seen that happen with other presidents, and they've done certain things like that, but on the small scale, it doesn't make a huge difference in like the school across the street or, you know, the hospital that you always go to. It doesn't make a huge difference. And those are the kind of things that I wish I could like pinpoint a good question on those and figure out how they're going to change those on a smaller scale. I know they are the president and the big idea is what's really important to them, but those are the things that matter to me, and I just wish that they would touch more on that, if that makes sense.
Well, and we have to start wrapping, but there's an argument to be made that then doesn't become a national strategy in terms of, you know, getting answers nationally. I think we start at the local level and we start asking our local representatives, because if it's something, I'm assuming when you said small scale, you meant like things that directly affect us in our own cities, right? Wherever you may be. Maybe it's a conversation to be had that we shouldn't prioritize so much this presidential run, and maybe prioritize, you know, the local elections a little more.
That's true.
I don't know. Maybe. But we have plenty of months to talk about all of this.
We do, and we will be talking about it for the several months to come. Yeah. I want to thank everybody for coming out, watching this great show. We will be back again next Friday, talking more about politics, more about the Democrats, Republicans, everything under the sun. If you like our show, just make sure you tune in. Black Hollywood Live, Black Tea Party. Again, I'm Anthony Martin. My Twitter handle is Black Fist Activist. My Facebook, Instagram is all the same thing. Check me out.
That is quite detailed. It's good. I hope they follow you on all of that. I'm Julian Dujeric. You can follow me at Julian Dujeric on Facebook, Twitter, and then my Instagram has pretty pictures, so you can follow me there too.
That's beautiful. All right, guys. Thanks for joining in.
See you later. See you next week.
From executives Kevin Undergaro, Dario Christian, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
I've actually heard this before. That's what I'm supposed to say.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.